Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1579 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. The Advantaged Investor Podcast from Raymond James, Canada. Learn how to plan, invest, and live smarter. Season 7 of Yes, We Are Open, an award-winning podcast from Monaris, hosted by FOTM Al Grego. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. And Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Today, making his highly anticipated Toronto Mike debut, is Colin Brunton. Welcome, Colin.
Hi, Mike.
How are you?
Not as good as I'd like to be, but
how good would you like to be? Oh, how high are those standards for you, Mr. Brunton?
Always reaching, always reaching.
You look good.
Thank you.
And I will hold on. I like the shirt you're wearing, but I've got him on the agenda. Don't you worry. We're going to talk some Nash the Slash today. But can I tell the listenership kind of a happenstance of like concurrent circumstances that brought us together today?
Sure.
Okay, first of all, I record monthly. We call these episodes Toast. So I do a monthly toast, and one of the members of the Toast crew is Rob Pruce. Do you know who Rob Pruce is?
Of course, he was he was in the Spoons. I met Rob back in '84.
So he was the keyboardist. Like I like to call it shout out to Bruce Springsteen, the glory days of Spoons, and Rob Pruce was the keyboardist. And he was like telling me, Mike, you should talk to Colin Brunton. And he was talking about Schitt's Creek, which we'll get to. And he said, you'd be a great guest. And I said, Rob, you had me at hello. So I reached out to you, right? Like I sent you a note. I think Rob introduced us by email, and I wrote and told you like, I'm way in the, I'm in the west end, the southwest corner of the city, but I'm doing this thing. You'd be a great guest. And you were like, be honest with me. How into it were you based on just the intro from Rob Pruce?
The intro from Rob Pruce counted a lot. Rob reached out to us and offered to do some extra music for the Nash documentary. But my only hesitation about the show was that I would have to go west of the DVP. And west of the DVP. I just don't like to do that. It's frightening.
No, I hear you. I don't blame you, by the way, but that's why you got a bike. I know it's going to take a couple hours, but that's the life hack. Is just bike. But so you were kind of like, oh, I got to go way west of the DVP, but then out of nowhere, I find out that I was asked if I would moderate this panel because Gary Topp has a new book coming out, and I think it's December 1st. I should confirm this. It's like, hey, Mike, would you be willing to moderate this panel, Gary Topp? And, I've had the Garys on. I love the Garys. We're going to talk a lot of Garys off the top. And I look at the list. Who's on? Oh, Ivor Hamilton is going to be there. I'm like, oh, Ivor's a good buddy here. Gary Cormier. I'm kind of going down the list. And then I see the name Colin Brunton. You're part of this panel.
I am. Yeah, I was a little surprised, but I go way back with Gary's. And all the synchronicity of this podcast and Gary Topp and Nash and the Spoons, and it's all tied into one neat little ball someplace in the universe.
And we're going to kind of unravel that ball of yarn right now. But when you saw that, hey, there's this Toronto Mike guy that I was just told about by Pruce, and then now we're going to be talking on the 1st at 888 Yonge at the old Masonic Temple there. You're like, I got to make the trek west of the DVP.
Absolutely. I mean, my father was a Mason, and so that intrigued me. And there's this amazing Masonic temple in Hamilton called the Scottish Rite. I don't know if you've been there. No. It's a fantastic building. I went in there and spoke with one of the guys at the desk and about my dad, and I didn't know if he knew my name, but I'd probably signed in for the crew. I was there with the crew, and he said, if you're ever in London, England, you should go to the main temple and ask him about your father. I think you might find something very interesting. And I thought, oh, okay, what? Was he Batman? What's this about?
Seriously, what a
done-
lead, right?
Yeah. So it's pretty cool to go to the famous Red Room, the Masonic Temple.
Right. And I got to ask you this question. I don't even know the answer, but are there still tickets available, or is this thing sold out?
It's sold out very quickly. There's now a second show in the evening. I don't think there's a panel in the second show.
Because I didn't get invited, so maybe they replaced me with Strombo or something. They said, hey, let's aim higher. Let's get Strombo.
No, so they sold it really quick, and they've got a second show. I think it's 7:00 on the 1st. And they're going to show one of the different things they're going to do that show is show The Last Pogo, which was the film I did at the Horseshoe in '78.
Oh my God. So when I saw you directed The Last Pogo, I'm like, that alone, I would absolutely want you in the basement to talk about that. So this is an opportunity for me to kind of do a bit of a pre-interview. So and by the way, I looked at the panel. I got to check out, there's other interesting people on the panel as well. And they said, okay, you got 60 minutes. And I said, okay, I got Top there. It's his life.
Yeah.
So, and I had Top over, and it took, 2 hours to kind of scratch the surface. But I got Top there, and Cormier there. I got Brunton there. I got Hamilton there. The gentleman from Yuck Yucks. Jeff Silverman, who I subsequently booked on Toronto Mike so I could do the same thing I'm doing with you, do my pre-interview on my podcast. But I'm like, are you, 60 minutes? Like, okay, that's the hardest part, is keep this thing to 60 minutes. But I am looking forward to, picking at the highlights again on the 1st of December for the new Top book.
Great.
Okay, so that's where I want to start. Let's start with Gary Top. I'm told that you're one of Gary's first employees. Could you please just tell me about your relationship with Gary Top, how you met him, and then we'll build our way to The Last Pogo.
Sure. So around, I guess it was 1973, I was like 17 years old. My friend Randy Terrell told me, hey, there's this really cool movie theater that just opened. That was the original 99-cent Roxy. So we started hanging out there, and I don't know, Gary Top took a liking to us, and we would help out at the door. And then when they booked Reefer Madness, which was when it started getting super popular, and so he hired me and Randy to be, quote unquote ushers. We would take tickets and just be there to, make sure it was, somewhat under control.
Right.
And I worked for him from then to the New Yorker, to the Horseshoe, and we still talk, at least once a week about stuff.
That's amazing. So I'm told that you created flyers.
Yeah. So after the New Yorker, the Garys, had bonded during the New Yorker, brought the Ramones and, Carla Bley and Sun Ra and all these great shows. And they wanted to get a new club. They found this old dumpy place down at Spadina and Queen called the Horseshoe. We went down there. I went down with them to check it out. And, it was they're such great guys, and I remember us just looking at, they had business to do, right? I was just kind of hanging out, and what I remember the most is seeing a long line of these kind of sad faces at the bar of these old timers who drank there for probably years. And one guy kind of looked up all forlorn and said, are we still going to be able to come here?
Right.
And Gary Cormier was one who says, don't you worry, you're on it. So at that point, I'd worked for Gary since 73, and I guess this was 78. And he offered me a job at the Horseshoe, and I said, what do you want me to take tickets? He goes, no, we'll have someone to do that. Do you want me to bus tables? He goes, no, they have people for that. Just come. So I just would go there, and
That's quite the job description.
yeah, and I did end up taking tickets and stuff, but then I started doing handbills for all the shows during their tenure there in 78, which was so much fun. I would do the handbills, and then I would get on my bicycle and my my staple gun and go around to the city and stick them up all over the city. Back then there was an etiquette that, you didn't put handbills up over other current things that were happening.
You got to have a code.
There was a total code. Reg Hart was, famous for his handbills. And, we were very respectful of each other. And so it was fun. It was great fun.
Where did the idea for the Horseshoe Man come from?
Well, that of course, is Gary's high school photograph. Or so the myth goes. I don't know. I was just given a blank. I've actually got the template at home, the blank template. And then, my thing was, altering the guy's face whenever I did a handbill to sort of, reflect, one of the bands that was on the bill that week or month or whatever.
So your flyers had a distinct character.
They did. They were really sloppy and messy. And, every so often I would make like it was complicated, right? Because you use Letraset. And so, I'd get focused on the letters and write out the name. Then you'd have to I had to ride my bike to this place. If I wanted to get it reversed, like I would do it black on white. To get it reversed, you had to go to this place called Midtown Reproductions. You would wait a day for them to reverse it and make it white on black. It would cost $10. So I'd already start, I had overhead, and then I get it back, and it's like, oh wow, I spelt the word dead and dead boys wrong. Oh, okay, well, I got to do this again. So.
Kids today, they won't understand, right? Like we have to educate the children, like how it used to be.
Yes,
so
exactly.
We're recording these for archival purposes. It's sort of like caveman drawings on the side of the cave. Yep. We got to educate the people. So I got a question. So again, for the listenership, because this scene, if you want to go back, so Gary Cormier, I think he dropped by first, and we did a deep dive into everything. And then Gary Top dropped by, and we captured all the great Gary Top stories. God, he's got a new book coming out. That's why we're having this panel on the first at 888 Young. But I have to ask you, Colin, were you at the police show at the Horseshoe, where I'm told, depending who I talk to, there were somewhere between 5 and 10 people in attendance?
Okay, I don't even want to know what Gary or Gary thought, but I remember distinctly, I believe I even counted, and I thought there were maybe 15 paying customers, because a lot of the people in the room at that time were working there. They were bussing tables, working at bars. So right. I think there was 15 people.
Okay, this is really firsthand. Like you counted heads, 15. So let's to give a little context. This is before Roxanne breaks, obviously. So, and the Garys, who again, we can't make this a Gary's episode because there's so much meat on that bone, but they would basically book the guests. If they liked the music, they booked the guests. Like this is like, they had to pass their test sort of. And the police, before Roxanne breaks, 15 people bought a ticket to see them at the Horseshoe Tavern.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a wild story here. So, but you were at this show. And again, I've seen photos of Sting in his underwear. So is this the photo where he kind of gets down to his underwear and is on stage at the Horseshoe?
Oh God! How
do you have any memories of this?
Someone else brought that up. I think it had to do with. I think it might have been Derek Emerson putting the book together. I don't actually recall that. All I remember was that.
But there might have been 2 shows.
There may have been 2 shows. All I remember was that I wasn't a big fan of the police. To me, they came off as sort of wannabe. Like that I didn't. I was pretty snotty about what punk and new wave was, and I thought they were sort of manufactured from a commercial.
Right.
But I think the reason they booked them was because of Kevin, the guitar player his name I can't remember, played with Kevin Coyne. The Garys were so excited about that. And they put on a great show. It was like they were playing to, I think, 15 people, maybe.
So
30
Andy
people.
Summers, is that
Andy Summers? Exactly.
That was their hook in 77 or whatever.
And they played. They did probably an hour and a half, 2-hour show, and they played their brains out. Like they played like they were in a stadium, and it was a huge audience. That was what really impressed me. And you know, and as is the Garys want, you know, they kept booking them and supporting them, and I think it paid off for them.
Yeah, it all comes back to the spoons and the police picnic. Okay.
Yes.
Which is actually so again, I even pulled a little clip of the last Pogo, and we're going to talk the last Pogo, obviously. But I am curious about at this point in Toronto. So you're talking like what are we at 78 or so? You said
Yeah, 78.
So CFNY, like I'm trying to think of what is your radio station of choice for a guy with your musical taste. Like where are you tuned into in this city?
CFNY. Absolutely.
And was that so? Do they? When does Marsden show up? I should know this because I talked to him just. It was 77 or 78. Like we're in. So this is the time when Marsden sort of takes over.
Yeah, I believe it was. It was when they were in the little so-called little yellow house out in Brampton.
Yeah.
It was hard to get. It was hard to even listen to them. You know, to hear them because it was. You know, they had very few watts going out. But yeah, I think that was when it was like still the truly independent, cool station.
So a fellow member of this panel that I'll be moderating, this will be easy. I'll just have to say go, and then you guys can do it yourselves. But Ivor Hamilton's on this panel. So Ivor Hamilton was there for the Spirit of Radio days with David Marsden. He still streams shows on nythespirit.com, which is where Marsden is focused these days. Mars Bar. You actually told me you were listening to the Marsden episode of Toronto Mike, the most recent one, on your drive here. Is that right?
I was, yeah.
And you were. I mean, he should be at this event on the 1st of December. This guy should be there. We got to make sure Marsden's on the guest list.
He goes right back to the Roxy days. I mean, the thing about the Roxy was it was such a. It became sort of like this meeting place for the counterculture, and I think like around 73, 74, that was when Toronto really started to change and get more interesting. It was really exciting time. And there were so many interesting people that hung out there and were regulars like Mars and Nash the Slash, the guy who co-founded Nelvana, the Garys, of course.
Which guy is that? Is that Clive Smith?
Well, I think Clive used to go there as well. It was Patrick Loubert. And Patrick Loubert premiered his first feature called Voulez-vous coucher avec God, which starred Tully Kuferberg of the Fugs, and we premiered it on a midnight show, and it did not go over very well. And I remember people were walking out within 15 minutes, and I would look over and I saw Patrick sitting there on a couch, not completely thrilled. And when it was over, I think I overheard him say to Gary, I think I'm going to travel across Canada and figure stuff out. And he came back and years later formed this gigantic company.
Yeah, they did all right on that deal.
Yeah.
So Marsden, CFNY, this is all part of this great scene here. So now I need to ask, who are you to direct the last Pogo? Like, bury me in some information about the last Pogo, which I believe was December 1st, 1978, and you directing the last Pogo.
Yeah, it was. So I had taken a weekend filmmaking course over the course of a month with this great English guy, Patrick Lee, and I'd made, as a student film, we went out and did this film called Bollocks, which was shot at David's Club in Toronto, which was a gay bar. And then at night it turned into a punk bar, and we shot this crazy 1.5 minute thing. I was driving cab at that point. It was 11 o'clock one night. I wasn't actually working in the New Yorker in the Horseshoe anymore. I was just doing handbills, driving cab, trying to get in the film business, doing anything. And I had just smoked a joint in my cab, and I needed to air it out. So I thought, okay, I'll park my cab in front of the Horseshoe. It's like 11 o'clock. Some people get upset if they smell pot. And I went in, and Andy Patterson of this great band called The Government was talking to Gary, and they were talking about this thing called The Last Pogo. And I was high enough that I thought, I just kind of blurted out. It's like, I'm going to make a movie about that. And the next day I got up and I was kind of clear-headed, and I thought, that still holds, man. I think that's a good idea. And I phoned up Patrick Lee and said, are you into helping? He goes, absolutely, let's do it. And then I just jumped into this what would become like a financial nightmare for me, but it was the best thing I could have done. It was so much fun. And it was, like the spontaneity of doing it. Like a lot of that came from this new punk vibe that the Ramones started, which was, hey, you don't have to go to film school, just do it, right? Just do it.
DIY.
Exactly. So we just did it. And then, my big shock after we pulled it off and shot it was finding out how much it was going to cost me to finish it. And that was just like, oh my goodness, what did I get myself into? So, it's great. I'm glad I made it. It's, one of the reasons it's one of the few punk films out there of that era is like people couldn't afford to do that. And I was just naive. Patrick Lee claims he told me how much it was going to cost, and he said,
"Can you give me some numbers? Can you
Well, I don't know how to translate 78 to 2024 numbers, but so we had to get film stock, and it was just like, okay, what does this stuff cost? Well, it's $100 a roll. We need like 30 rolls. It was like, oh man, it's like $3,000. I was making $30 a night driving cab.
$3,000 and 78. Okay, so I have a little frame of reference here. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. I was making $30 a night driving cab, and it's like, oh, so I found this guy on Church Street who sold what they call short ends. So people would shoot commercials, and if they had like 100 feet left over in the roll, it's not long enough for a big take. They would then, just seal it up and put it away. So I went to this guy's place, driving cab. I had a couple $100 in my pocket somehow. And, the thing I remember was that he was like, sort of like a failed producer. He'd tried to produce films and it didn't work out, like are the odds, right? And I just remember thinking he actually had a sunken living room, which I thought, that's so tacky and awesome. I love this. And he showed me all these crappy things. Some of the cans were rusted, and it's like, I don't know. Yep, I'm going for it. I got it. And then Patrick Lee did something very tricky. So Patrick Lee was teaching at, I believe, Humber, teaching film there. And he, quote unquote, exchanged all the short ends for brand new film, Kodak film, in the student fridge, and rounded up the crew for me and got a couple of people that wanted to shoot it, and we just went out and did it. And
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're there. So maybe just even a little more context for those who are like, okay, we know this documentary, The Last Pogo, but what exactly was The Last Pogo in terms of an event at the Horseshoe Tavern?
So what it was billed as people say it was billed as the last punk show in Toronto, and it kind of was the last punk show of like the original wave of punk, which 76 to 78 kind of thing, right?
Right.
It was the last show the Garys did there. It was that, and the next night was called The Last Bound Up. So it was the kind of like the last punk show at the Horseshoe. And when I realized how much money I needed to finish this, I discovered the Ontario Arts Council.
Okay.
And someone told me about that. I was like, okay, what? I write them a letter and they give you money? So I very carefully wrote a letter. It took me forever. And I kind of said to them, I think this film will be really interesting in 25 years. Can you give us, money to do it? And one day, the post guy comes to the door, and I'm sweating rent at a place on Richmond Street with my buddy Larry Hudson, and the mail comes and there's a check there for $8,000, and it's like, wow, this is fun. And then, then I got money from the Toronto Council and the Canada Council, and I still didn't have enough. I still had to borrow money. I somehow, like back then, the film industry was just sort of starting in Toronto, and I remember going to I don't know which bank it was. I went to a bank on Young College and somehow convinced the loan officer to lend me $10,000, which is just an insane amount of money. And but I think he thought, this guy's getting into business. And I think it was after 3 months he phoned and said he'd like to have a quick meeting with me. And I was like, okay, what's this about? And I go down there, and he was so blunt. I don't think you're even allowed to be this rude anymore to people. But he basically said, "Hey, just to let you know, once you pay this loan off, we're closing your account, and I don't want to see you again." Because I was always late with the payments, and it was like, and then it still took 8 more years to pay this thing off.
Oh man,
right?
but that bluntness is almost refreshing. Just
Yeah.
tell me to my face the deal here instead of the way they do it now. It's just they just bullshit you, and then
Yeah, it's like, these days he'd say, I think we're going to go in a different direction, or, we're not clear on this journey you're on anymore.
good luck with your future endeavors. It's like, no, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so that last Pogo, a riot almost breaks out, right? People can find this pretty easily. It's only 26 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so people, it's not like a 2-hour thing. So 26 minutes, you made it in 1978.
Yep.
16 millimeter color film here that you somehow cobbled together and did it. And do you remember the lineup for this, for the last Pogo?
I do. It was the Scenics, the Secrets, the Mods, Cardboard Brains, the Vile Tones, and Teenage Head. Nash the Slash was supposed to be there, but he broke his hand. The Vile Tones weren't originally billed, but I think they got excited when they found out there was going to be a live album recording and a film being made, and they showed up at the last minute.
It's funny how that happens. Okay. And over 800 people are there. And this, of course, the last Pogo, a lot of frenetic energy, if you will, a lot of thrashing, and a near riot ensued.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was.
Yeah, I know. I missed this completely. I was busy listening to my Saturday Night, what is it called? Sesame Street Fever. It was the parody of Saturday Night Fever. Grover on the cover in his disco outfit. But I was busy listening to that. But yeah, thank God you were there to capture some of this.
It was, honestly, the whole night was a blur to me. We knew where the camera people were going to be, and then, and you look at the footage now, and it's, first of all, it's just so smoky. Like, everyone's smoked, and people are smoking.
It still smells smoky in there.
Probably.
It does.
People are smoking
They're all
dope
fine.
and cigarettes, and they ran out of beer early. There were so many people there, so people started drinking hard liquor. And I think some people might have been maybe acting up a little bit for the camera. When things started happening, like when the I think the detective who shut it down, he was sitting at the bar all night, and I think he was popping back a few drinks, and I think he got fed up or frightened, and pulled the plug. And so people didn't know why Teenage Head did one song and left. Right. And it was awesome. It's like people were throwing chairs and tables, and we got booted out. Somehow my sound recordist managed to hide away and stay in there. So I don't want to let people down if they buy this, but you don't actually see riot footage. You hear it. You hear crunching, and
I like how you're apologizing for something you made in 1978.
Well, I'm Canadian, right? So my apologies for not fighting my way back in there. My favorite moment was I still know him to this day, a guy called Evan Siegel. So Evan Siegel used to be in a band called the Swollen Members, who were so good and so talented, and one of the few bands in that era that really had a good sense of humor. Anyways, every so often, Evan Siegel would appear in public as Dr. Strangelove. He would be in a wheelchair, and his right arm would go up in a salute once in a while. And the thing about Evan was that he would stay in character no matter what. And so while this thing is happening and people are getting punched out by the Blake Street Boys, he was moseying. He was trying to, I guess the word skedaddle is the opposite of mosey. Yeah. He was trying to skedaddle.
Shout out to Stompin' Tom.
He was trying to get out of the main floor, and he wouldn't get up out of his wheelchair. He just kept manually wheeling himself across the floor to get to the front doors.
Oh my goodness! So there's so amazing. So many places I want to go, but because of the shirt and because you dropped his name, I think I'm just gonna play a song for a moment. This is a song the CFNY heads out there would have heard this jam on CFNY, just to kind of segue us over. So I'm gonna go into a bit of a A little bit of music, which sounds great in the headphones. All these years later, actually. All right, please, Colin, tell me when you first met Nash the Slash. Talk to me about Nash the Slash.
So he was another one of the regulars at the Roxy. I'd probably in 73, 74, he was in a great Toronto band called Breathless. He didn't wear the bandages then. But he looked great. He had a top hat and tails, and he played the electric violin. Great Blue Fire, great theatrical band. And then he became a regular at the Roxy. And I remember when he started to think he wanted to go solo, and he was trying to think of a name, and him and Gary chatted a lot. He was a good friend of Gary's, and he came up with the name Nash the Slash. So I knew him from, just before he turned into Nash, and then up until he passed.
And what's his real name?
Real name's Jeff Pluman.
So before he adopted the moniker, and then you knew him before he was Nash the Slash.
Yeah, a lot of people for a while thought Nash was actually Anne Murray. It was one of the many rumors that went around. But no, he was Jeff Pluman.
That's funny. It's, okay, you can hear it in the schoolyards of Toronto. It's like, Nash the Slash is Anne Murray, and she had a big shout out to Anne Murray though, because when I was listening to Sesame Street Fever, I also there's a Hippo in My Bathtub by Anne Murray. Love that album. Okay? Love that album. Shout out to the late 70s there. Okay. So Nash the Slash, and when you say Gary, just to confirm, you mean Gary Top, because you can't say Gary, because there's two Garys,
Yeah,
multiple
that's
Garys.
right.
They're not making Garys anymore, by the way. Gary is a name. There's no kids named Gary.
No, you're right.
They don't make them anymore. So
I read that someplace.
I think it's like there's none. And then I want to shout out to Gary Joyce, who's listening. Hopefully, a good guy. And I know a lot of Garys. I'm related to Garys, but there's no young Garys.
Nope. It died off. The name has died off.
So Nash the Slash and this song, which by the way, CFNY heads from the Spirit of Radio era, like when they hear this song, they're right back. It's amazing. And I pulled a few songs because one's going to segue over to the next segment. But you're wearing this shirt for Nash the Slash. And tell me about this project that you're passionate about, the Nash the Slash doc.
So for about 5 years now, I guess, I've been involved in a documentary called Nash the Slash Rises Again. I hooked up with this company called Side 3, which is really two people, Tim Kowalski and Kevin Byrne. They had started a documentary. They'd shot interviews. They needed an executive producer, kind of did a shout out on Facebook. They'd actually interviewed me for the documentary, and I met with them and said, maybe I can help you get it done. And it's still taken 5 years. Wow. So I think they might have thought an executive producer wrote a check or something.
Well, you're Colin Brunton. They're like, this is the answer to all our problems here.
Yeah,
this will be at TIFF next fall.
It'll be, it's the beginning of all their problems. It was like, I did a bit of fact checking and stuff, but, so anyways, as I joined them, they had just started a crowdfunder. They, raised, $52,000. We got some money from the Slate Foundation years ago. But, there's been no interest from broadcasters or TIFF. And so we're doing
why is that, though? Because concurrently, I'm always interested in these docs, especially the Nash the Slash doc. And then there's a CFNY doc that's in the can, okay?
Yeah.
Were you interviewed for that?
Was I? I don't think so. I think I licensed them some footage from the last Pogo, though.
Okay. Okay, good. And remind me to play my, just a little taste of the last Pogo. It's very short. Maybe I'll play it right after this little spiel here. But, I mean, Ivor Hamilton is involved in this documentary. Who's going to be on the panel with us? Imagine I just said, screw the Gary Top book. I just want to talk CFNY doc, and I want to talk Nash/doc. You think I'd get in trouble with Derek Emerson if I did that? Don't give me any ideas.
Well, maybe that's, maybe he knew this was going to happen, and that's why you're not doing the second part of the.
Well, you can withhold my check then, and that's the trade-off there. Okay, so this CFNY doc is done, and they kept, Alan Cross would write on his blog, and then I would talk to people like Scott Turner and Ivor Hamilton, and this thing was supposed to be done and available to see, if not at TIFF, then like concurrent, like a side TIFF, but a line like at the same time, fall 2024. Okay, checking my watch now. Okay, it's November. This is past tense. So where is it? I don't know. There's no date anymore. It's like these things. I don't know how this world works.
So
I'm so ignorant. I'm
the
like
world,
a caveman
the world doesn't
lawyer.
work in a great way all the time, as we found out last Wednesday, but.
Right.
Here's one thing.
Tuesday.
I don't know if this is the case with the CFNY doc, but it's great to be a filmmaker these days. You can shoot stuff on your phone. You can edit at home. You can do all this stuff, right? It's unbelievable. However, what people, and I don't know this is the case with the CFNY doc, but with so many docs out there, they get all this stuff shot, and then they find out about copyright and paying for rights.
Oh yeah, clearing the music.
Exactly.
Right.
So the one of the problems that, not even our problem, we've had great support from first of all, the estate, who gave us all of Nash's music for free, right? BMG Canada gave us all the publishing for one of the albums for free. Great support. However, there's TV footage, and TV licensing is hardcore, man. It's like between $60 and $120 a second. Wow. And, you start adding that up. If you want 10 minutes, that's 600 seconds. Like, that's a lot. And we need way more than 10 minutes. The thing that's taken us so long is basically two things. One, and again, this can be the case with so many documentaries that don't quite hit the market anymore, is that you've got to find the money for it. Mm-hmm. You've also got to find the stuff and figure out if it's clearable. And in the case of Nash, it was like, we're looking at footage that was shot sometimes 40, 50 years ago. So it's like, hey, can we even find the owner? And then, who owns the Texas Chainsaw we have footage from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because there's a big tie in between Nash and horror films. And the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was like, you find out, Universal owns it. You write it, you go to the clearance people. The woman very promptly, abruptly says in an email, we own the rights. We're not interested in licensing you anything. All these American companies do not give a shit.
Wow.
They don't care. We just fluked out. And a few weeks later, another one of our producers, Leanne Davies, I says, why don't you give her a buzz? Maybe woman to woman, maybe it'll make a difference. And sure enough, the woman goes, you know what? We realize we don't own the rights. You've got to contact this lawyer in Austin, Texas. So, go to this website. It looks like it was a GoDaddy website. But then the meat of the website was this lawyer battling for the originators of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I said, this is the guy. So if you think of the number of weeks that took to find and clear 30 seconds of footage, and you multiply that, if you compress, if we had 100 people on our crew and we had $300,000, we could have shot, edited, completed the film in a year. But when there's no money, you don't have time because you've got jobs and family. So with CFNY, I don't know what it was, but I got a suspicion it has to do with some sort of rights situation. And some of these companies are, they just won't bend. So
I find this very enlightening because, I don't know if there's a podcast in the world that's following these Canadian documentaries as closely as I am, but there was a documentary about Much Music called 299 Queen Street West.
Yeah, man. Okay, so as soon like okay, so ever since I did even Roadkill back in '89, I PM'd a lot of feature films, you know, B movies, forgettable films. I was very, very, for some reason, keen on making sure we've got I's dotted, T's crossed. You got to clear this. You got to get permission here, etc. None of this thing. I'm going to beg forgiveness instead of asking for permission. I can't stand that. So when the CFNY doc got announced, and I knew it was with Bell Media, I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I guess.
Oh, you mean the 299 Queen?
Sorry, the 299 Queen. Yeah, when I heard about that, and I thought, oh, I get it. So the guy's going to get all this footage from Bell Media as part of a licensing fee. How is he going to clear all that music?
Right.
And sure enough, that's his problem.
Well, I saw this film at Roy Thompson Hall because he rented the place on a Friday night and had his premiere there. And then I saw, and this is a little bit fast forward, but I saw promotions for this documentary. It's gonna be available on Crave, which is a Bell Media property, and it was promoted. Like you could see it Friday or something. And of course, because I'm pretty close to some people involved, like Retro Ontario and stuff. Sean Menard, the director's been over here talking about it. And I'm a Much Music guy. There's a Much Music on the wall. Shout out to David Kynes. But this thing never made it to Crave, and here we are like over a year later, and I don't know what's going on, if we'll ever see this 299 Queen Street with, because like you said, there's a lot of footage. I don't know, Backstreet Boys are singing and Britney Spears, and you got to clear these things. Yeah,
it's tough. I'm in the same thing. Like, so I thought, oh, wait a minute. It sounds like they're going to get this together. I want to watch this. I went to watch it that night on Crave, and just before, it was like, okay, something else came on, and I thought, they didn't clear it. And I know what they're going through, and it's a bugger, man. It's
a bugger, but I did. So again, I had like Scott Turner, Ivor Hamilton, Alan Cross have all been in this basement, and they took notes, like learned from the 299 Queen Street West. And I mean, I had these conversations like, are like you saw what's happened there. Now your next sort of deal, if you're looking for this Gen X, GTA thing or what Canadian thing. And I was basically told they were adamant that no, everything's on the up and up. They're properly clearing everything because if they're going to play How Soon Is Now, they're going to make sure that it's all up and up. But still, there's a snag somewhere. I guess we'll have to find out what they're saying about the snag. But maybe that's my first question to Ivor Hamilton on December 1st. Where the hell's the CFNY doc?
I talked to Ivor. Ivor gave me a shout out for our crowdfunder for National Slash on. And Why the Spirit of Radio. And he kind of hinted that, they've run into some problems. I said, I got to, like, he wouldn't tell me, but I said, give me a buzz if you want. Like, I'd be glad to talk to them. And
sure.
And not that I could sort it out, but I could at least explain why I think they're having a problem.
And then now this is going to tie in. And again, there's certain, I hope you don't have a dentist appointment at 11 o'clock or anything. Because I'm going to, it's worth the ride. Because, you mentioned Roadkill. So I want to go there. I also, we're talking about these documentaries, and they filmed Martin Scorsese. Ever heard of this guy? Some indie filmmaker.
I've heard of that guy from New York or something, right?
But he, were you at the SCTV documentary filming? The thing?
No, it was happening. I believe it was happening while we were shooting one of the seasons of Schitt's Creek.
Okay, well, Eugene got there.
Yes.
And Catherine O'Hara got there.
Yes. And even Joe Flaherty made it.
Yes, he did. And well, the big get at the time was that Rick Moranis was there.
Yeah,
like, he's the guy who seems to be withholding. He doesn't do much. He did a benefit for Ian Thomas's son, and I think that was it. Bob and Doug. Although they do these beer ads or something.
They do, yeah. But I don't know what happened with that.
So so the SCTV doc I was excited about. Everyone I talked to who was there said it went off great at the Winter Garden Theater there.
Mm-hmm.
And this thing doesn't seem to be coming out. I think it's gonna rot on some shelf in the Scorsese warehouse or whatever. And meanwhile, then the 299 Queen Street one, which I got to see, but it never saw the light of day for the public yet. Here we are waiting. And the CFNY doc I was very excited about. So basically, this is a long way to say, when can I see the National Slash doc?
Really it comes down to when we find another $37,000. We're so close. We're at the point now where we've got a second crowdfunder, and it's remarkable. We've raised $38,000. There's no perks. It's like, you get your name in the credits. We'll give you a shout out on social media. You might get a dopamine rush from donating some money.
Right.
But it's really inspiring because these are fans and supporters and people that want to help an indie film. So we're really, really close. We're applying to the arts councils. We've got I've got an email someplace from the CBC where I was trying to dig up money from them years ago. And I've got an email from the CBC, and they pretty much, in the email, they pretty much list every single possible CBC outlet that might show a film like that and said, none of us are interested.
Wow. Why is that, though?
Because he's not Nickelback.
Because the kids... he's not
He's not Nickelback. He's not the Tragically Hip.
Right.
He's us, you know, in the grand scheme of things, he's undeservedly obscure, you know, but I think I think he's much more interesting than Tragically Hip or whoever. I'm
with you, and I love the Tragically Hip doc, but I'm with you. This whole idea that if it isn't big time, no one mainstream thing, then we're not going to invest in it.
It's like TIFF. Like TIFF, you know, TIFF used to be a thing called the Festival of Festivals. Right. It was called the Festival for the People. And they had a thing called, you know, Canadian Perspective, and they would, you know, show Canadian films. I don't even know, they have so many different programs, but I just find that they want to do, you know, crowd-pleasing shows. Like, great, you showed the Bruce Springsteen documentary. I'm sure it's great. Pharrell, I love the guy. Great ideas. Like, you know, I don't know if they need the exposure as much as a gem like Nash. So
right.
One of the things that, I mean, you know, we're trying to look at the silver lining, right? But like once we get the film done, we're going to have it done. We're confident we'll have it done next year is, you know, maybe this will be discovered. Like maybe it'll be a Searching for Sugar Man or you know, the Anvil. Like
the Anvil's a great example, very good example of Anvil's not a big known band. Like guys like us know Anvil, but the great unwashed that you encounter on your commute to work or whatever on the subway, most of them won't know who the hell Anvil is. But what a great doc that was. They got that finished.
Totally, yeah.
Okay, geez, Colin, we got to get this money to finish this. Now, you know who you got to talk to? Clive Smith.
Well,
he's got the cash.
Let me tell you, man. I haven't written to Clive. I'd run into Clive once in a while, but it's like, you know, the emails I've written and the texts I've sent to people that I know have a bit of so-called
some coin.
It's just so humbling. It's just it's embarrassing. Like
in Gary Slate's, we can't get this guy to, you know.
They came through once already. Okay. Yeah, so they gave us the max they could.
Go back to that well.
Yeah, no, we can't go. I tried to go back to the well, and he says, "No, Colin, you can't come back to the well quite yet." So, but we got $25,000 from them, which was, you know, my partners,
which is amazing.
Yeah, it was great, and it was like, okay, now we're getting there. Like we got some momentum. I don't think we're gonna. I don't think the crowdfunding thing is gonna be that hot until January because of Christmas and stuff. But you know, we're pounding the streets, putting up handbills.
Okay, so is there like a website or something? People listening who maybe Rob Pruce right now on the live stream says, I've got some money, I want to help fund this thing. Like, is there a place where you're accepting money for this? Yeah,
all Rob Pruce has to do is go to GoFundMe.com, / rises again, and you get your Visa card, and you write in the $2,000 or even $200 or $20.
You'll take 20.
And you press click, and you're done. And then we get, because you know, some days, honestly, we're sitting there and I'm refreshing my phone so often. It's like, oh my God, you know, and then it's like, you know, like the social media stuff, man. And just last night, this guy, Glenn Guerin, this local artist, he had some problems donating and it found out it was all you needed to be on the Chrome server. Anyways, he made a really nice donation of $100.
Okay.
This morning, I thanked him because I had his email, and I said, you know, and this is when you've got to be so careful. It's like, you know, hey, Glenn, and I wanted to say thanks very much. Somehow predictive text translated that to thanks, douche. It's like, okay, I caught that. I'm not sending that to Glenn.
That's like the message you got from that bank back in the day. It's like,
Oh no,
don't come back.
that guy was straight ahead.
So, okay, Colin, I realize, Mike, rein yourself in, or you're going to lose the gig, that lucrative gig as moderator of the panel on December 1st. You know, you're going to Derek's going to fire you. So here, I'm going to play a little bit of the last Pogo clip I pulled, and then I'm going to roll into a song, and then I know exactly what I want to ask you about next. So let's listen.
Hey, Ted, scene one, take 3. Mickey.
You guys think we'll be doing the same thing in 5 years?
Filming?
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't take longer than 10 minutes. My car's double parked.
A little more Nash the Slash. Get people inspired to, open up their wallets and whip out that credit card and find the GoFundMe and get this thing made here. Okay. But specifically, Roadkill.
Okay, boys, let's get it.
Love it. Okay. Please tell me about working with Bruce McDonald.
Oh, we had we had a great time. So I met Bruce at a co-op in Toronto called Lyft. A lot of kindred spirits there. We all kind of helped each other. I made this goofy short film called The Mysterious Moonmen of Canada. Bruce was a producer on it.
And that won a Genie.
It won what was called, it was called a Genie Award. And so he had gotten an Arts Council grant for about $70,000 to make a film called All the Children Are In, which is about a band called Neon Rome, who were awesome.
Yeah.
So I just, he wanted me to help him.
Was John Bora on Neon Rome?
Yeah, John Bora was in Neon Rome.
I talked to him, yeah.
Yeah, John's awesome. And then not long before we were going to shoot, Bruce phoned Neil Arbuck, the lead singer of Neon Rome, to talk about the show, and all we heard was tapping on the phone. And anyways, Neil had decided to take a vow of silence, and we thought, oh, I don't know if, what do we do now? And anyways, it just kind of evolved with Don McKellar got involved, and it evolved into an actual story and called Roadkill, and
which I loved. I loved Roadkill. Just throwing it out there.
It's got some legs, man. It was a lot of fun. It was like total gonzo. We didn't have all the funding. It was much like me doing the last Pogo. It's like, you know what? We got enough money to shoot it. Let's just see what happens. We applied for this. We applied for money from a thing called the Ontario Media. No, it's called the Ontario Film Development Corporation. We timed it so that we would know if we got the grant, the money or not on the first day of filming. when we were so cocky. Like the thing with me and Bruce was like, you know, we had no fucks left to give. Like we were just and he still does. I think we're just trying to have fun every step of the way. And so when we applied for the money, I remember dropping off the application. It was like the day you could drop off applications, and you did it physically. And
Right.
and there was this older woman at the desk, and I said, you know, here's our application for the feature film fund. You know, do you think you can put it at the top of the pile so they see it right away? And she's like, well, no, I can't do that. You've got to go in order. And I says, well, you know, I think if you open up the application and look in the last page, there might be a little treat for you there. And we'd stuffed it with 10,000 American dollars of set dressing money, like counterfeit money.
Right.
I thought she was going to have a heart attack. She freaked out.
That's funny.
And she says, I can't take that. I said, oh, come on. Pretend you're in New York City. Like, just go for it. And then I said, no, we're just joking. Anyways, we ended up getting that money. And then, you know, the film, it was great because we had, I've still got it at home. We had, I think the script was maybe 45 pages long. And the whole film was sort of reverse engineered. Like, we just figured out, like, what can we do for 70 grand? Let's do this instead of that. Let's do this instead of that. And make it happen.
So you produced Roadkill, but you also produced Highway 61, which I also loved. Love these films. These were like formidable. These are important films to teenaged Mike here. Roadkill and Highway 61. Love the music. Bruce McDonald. You mentioned Don McKellar. Like, you were producing these films.
Yeah.
I know. I got to let the listenership know, okay? This is the mind blow. So essentially from last Pogo, and now you're doing Roadkill and Highway 61. And you mentioned your Mysterious Moon Men of Canada, which won you the Genie for Best Live Action Short. But now you're a going concern here in the Big Smoke.
Oh, gee, I wish.
Well, I'll name some credits. So again, I won't take the 6 hours I threatened to take from you. I'll try to keep this reasonable, under 90 minutes. But this is a good moment, I think, for me to give you some gifts. And I know you have gifts for me. So the new rule is everybody listen, all future guests, this is a quid pro quo thing. I will give you gifts, but you got to bring me something, okay? That's what Colin did. So I don't even know. Are you still drinking alcohol? I never know anymore. Who's
no, not me.
No more. Okay.
No one in my house.
No one in your house. Okay. You know, you can donate these cans to me. I'm just letting
there
you
you
know.
go.
Okay.
Funnily enough, that was my gift to you. Was these 4 cans?
You know what? I think that qualifies. You know. So I would love to thank Great Lakes Brewery because of the good intentions. They sent over fresh craft beer for Colin Brunton, who is politely declining, but I will consume these delicious cans of GLB, and I will thank them for sending over some beer for TMLX 17. What is that? Colin is wondering to himself. Well, the day before our panel discussion at 888 Yonge Street, I am hosting 17th Toronto Mic'd Listener Experience at Palma's Kitchen in Mississauga. And everybody who comes out for the live recording there, Colin, it'd be amazing if you showed up there the day before, because everyone gets a free meal from Palma Pasta, a delicious Italian meal. Please tell me you're still eating Italian food.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank goodness, man. Thank goodness. All right, I do have a large lasagna in my freezer for you, courtesy of Palma Pasta. And everybody who's listening is invited on the 30th of November, 2024, noon to 3 p.m. at Palma's Kitchen, which is in Mississauga. Google it, like Mavis, Burnhamthorpe area, and we're going to have a great time. Again, you're going to get your meal. You're going to get a beer from Great Lakes. I have for you a measuring tape, Colin. This is courtesy of Ridley Funeral Home. You can measure what you wish. I don't know, you're on set. You need to measure something. I won't ask any more questions about that. But I also have a wireless speaker for you, Colin. It's courtesy of Moneris, because with that wireless Bluetooth speaker, high-quality speaker, by the way, you will subscribe and listen to Yes, We Are Open, which is an award-winning podcast from Al Grego. He's nominated again for a Canadian Podcast Award. This guy's always winning the awards. He traveled to Winnipeg, and he collected stories from small businesses, their origins, their struggles, their future outlook, and he shares these in Season 7 of Yes, We Are Open. So thank you, Moneris, for the speaker that's going to Colin. You got your speaker, measuring tape. You're giving me the beer. You're taking the lasagna. one piece of advice, because I'm sure as a film, as a producer, director, you've got, I don't know, a room full of old cables or old devices.
Yes.
I did this on the weekend. So true story. I have laptops that haven't worked in 10 years, okay? I got the cabling for, I went through all my old electronics and cables and put together a couple of boxes. And then I went to recyclemyelectronics.ca and I put in my postal code and I found out that I could drop these off at a Staples near Sherway Gardens, not too far from here. And they'll be properly recycled so the chemicals do not end up in our landfill. Thank you, recyclemyelectronics.ca. Colin, you can do that too, buddy.
I've done it. I go down. I love going to the dumps in the city for some reason, and I've dropped off my stuff there. So I've got stuff for you.
Okay, what do you got for me?
So I have a DVD of The Last Pogo.
Amazing.
And I've also got a DVD of The Last Pogo Jumps Again. I'm not very imaginative on titles, as you can see. This was the 3.5-hour film I did with Kire Papoots about the original 76 to 78 Toronto punk scene. And I've got a Nash the / postcard.
I love all of this. And the fact I'm going to get that Nash the / postcard on the studio wall. I like it so much. And thank you very much. Nash the / rises again. Thank you, man.
You're welcome.
And I was going to mention The Last Pogo Jumps Again, and you beat me to it. And it's a lot longer than The Last Pogo.
It's crazy, man. It was like our original cut. I think the cut that me and Kire were really happy with was 5.5 hours long. And then the Canada Council says, we like your project. We can't support something that's that long.
It's too long, they said.
We cut it down.
Yeah, thank God you had the measuring tape for the funeral.
Yes.
It's funny I mentioned Scorsese sitting on that SCTV footage because he didn't sit on the Last Waltz footage. And no Last Waltz, no Last Pogo.
That's right.
Lest we forget here. Okay. Now, where I want to conclude, unless I'm missing some stuff you want to talk about, which can go over the place, but I do want to. So I played that song Roadkill that let us talk about the Bruce McDonald stuff, which I absolutely loved. But you've produced a shit ton of television. Like, we've talked a bit about Schitt's Creek, but I mean, I was trying to say, what else has he done? Okay. Little Mosque on the Prairie, The Newsroom, but not the Sorkin one, the one I like. I love The Newsroom.
Yeah. It was fun. I mean, so the producers, like, okay, not lots of money involved, listeners. I'm basically what they call a line producer, which means, I'm a hired gun. So I get hired.
You don't want your friends asking you for money.
Well, I don't want, especially people that have like GoFundMe campaigns and crap like that. I don't want to deal
They don't
with
want a rich guy asking to fund the.
But yeah, I've been lucky. I've gotten to work on some interesting stuff.
Yeah, and I'm going to go into it. Though, let me just start with this one, just because I think this is like the highest. So we mentioned that you couldn't attend the SCTV reunion, but somehow Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara made their way over there. So how did you end up producing Schitt's Creek? Give me the Schitt's Creek story.
I got lucky. Eugene Levy and Dan Levy pitched the project to CBC. I think everyone knows the famous story in that, the CBC didn't jump at the opportunity at first, which was crazy. They wanted Eugene and Dan to change the title. They didn't want to show it after 9 o'clock, and Eugene said, no, it's called Schitt's Creek. Here's a Toronto telephone book that shows people with that last name. And it was given to, Eugene had approached a Toronto financier film guy who was actually so deep-pocketed, he just thought, I don't have the time to do this. And he talked to a friend of mine, Andrew Barnsley, and said, do you want to exec produce this show? And Andrew's like, yeah. And then Andrew says, hey, Colin, do you want to work on a show with Eugene Levy and Chris Elliott and maybe Catherine O'Hara? Says, yeah.
Wow.
So it was a lucky thing.
So that does beg the question, what the hell does a producer do? Like, is a producer different for every project? Like, is that just a catch-all term?
It's a crazy term. It's like there's executive producers, co-executive producers, associate producers, line producers. So I'm in the sweet spot of just producer, which means, essentially someone raises a bunch of money, they hire me. It's like, okay, we have $22 million to do 13 episodes. This is what we're paying our stars. This is what we're paying that. How do we do the rest? And so then you go from there and you figure out how do we make this film? How do we make this TV show?
But Schitt's Creek, very, very successful by any measurement, right? I mean, it has some record with Emmy Awards for, I don't know, sweeping. No one's ever swept those awards.
Yeah,
or-
the only comedy I think to get that many awards.
Like that's what a monster success story Schitt's Creek is.
Yeah.
And you're sure you're not swimming in a like on your bed. You got just $100 bills just piled to the ceiling, like Scrooge McDuck or something.
No, you'd think that, right? But no, not at all. No, I didn't own any piece
You
of
don't
that.
have Clive Smith money.
I don't have Clive Smith money. I don't have Barry Smith money. It's Frank Smith down the street money.
Oh man. Okay, well then what's wrong with this country? Come on. Okay, so that's great. So congrats on the success of Schitt's Creek. But I also, at least the 6th season of The Kids in the Hall, and I loved The Kids in the Hall. And just to know that you had anything to do with the 6th season. So what did you do for the 6th season of The Kids in the Hall?
Same kind of thing. And it was the same producer, Andrew Barnsley, got the show to exec produce it, hired me to produce it for them, and jumped into it. Found a studio. It was awesome because I actually found this is when I actually started. Hey, I think I can work east of the DVP the rest of my life, because we found this studio that was up in Scarborough, 10 minutes from my house. I love this, and we shot 8 episodes. It was great. Amazon financed it. We had a shit ton of money to spend, so you know, the DOP, you know, I would tell him just really get anything you want, and the directors, and you know, so everyone got what they wanted on that show. I think it was very very liberating creatively for the people on the show in that kind of position, because we could pretty much do anything we wanted.
Amazing. And I know we did mention the newsroom moments ago, but is Ken Finkelman a bit of a dink, or is he okay? I get a dink vibe from
I
Ken.
like Ken. I got along with Ken. Somehow Ken got along with me, but like your question about what does a producer do is like he didn't know what I did. Like I was his fucking line producer for a couple of seasons, and I remember him and the guy who hired me, Peter Mayboom, who's another producer / line producer. Him and Ken were partners in the newsroom, and so we finished the first season, I guess, and him and Peter and Ken were on a plane, and I think they were going off to Cannes maybe, or some big TV festival, and they'd been delayed for hours, and so, you know, they sat in the plane and drank, and Ken Finkelman called me while they were waiting and said, "Colin, I still don't know what you do, but you did a great job, man. Great job." I was like, "Oh, thanks, Ken."
You know, he directed Airplane 2.
He did Airplane 2.
Shout out to Andrew Stokely, who these days is spent. He's in the truck making sure that the curling or the Blue Jays game audio gets to the television properly. That's what he's up to. But he worked on, I think there's an super early episode of Toronto Mike where I just wanted Stokely to tell me Finkelman stories from Airplane 2. But
do you want to hear his Simpsons story?
I love The Simpsons.
So Ken Finkelman is I think it was the first or second season of The Simpsons, and his agent said, "Hey, they want to talk to you. They want you to be a writer on the show."
Wow.
So he flew down to New York for the first read through or the first meeting, and he was fretting about leaving his family up here. He went to the meeting. He's sitting there with 12 other writers. They start talking about the show, and Ken goes, "Excuse me 1 minute," and he stands up and he leaves. Just went right to the airport and took off. Didn't say goodbye, and he just left and came back to Canada, and then had a very nice relationship with CBC where they kind of let him do whatever he wanted.
I did not know that story. That's wild. Get in on the ground floor almost of The Simpsons there. Yeah. You know, maybe he could have been the next Conan O'Brien.
Who knows?
Maybe
man.
Conan got that gig.
Very smart guy. You know, he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But I really liked working with him. He was fun.
Well, what's he up to? I mean, I feel like he's gone underground. I don't know what happened to Ken. I got to dig this guy up and put him on Toronto Mike.
He did a movie a few years ago that I don't think went over well, and that's the last I've heard of him.
Okay. Wow. You know, I feel like the SEO for the newsroom got stolen by Sorkin because he had the big Jeff Daniels newsroom, and it's like now you have to say I'm talking about the Finkelman newsroom, and then and you know. We can joke about Finkelman and Airplane 2, but Jeremy Hotz was on the newsroom, and That man was in Speed 2, okay? So these are all the lesser.
Jeremy Hotz, man.
What can you tell me about Jeremy Hotz? He's been on the program. I got time for Jeremy Hotz. I think he's a funny guy.
He's a great guy. So we were on the same season together, and I can't think of what it was, but me and Jeremy, there was there was a new person on the crew who was like a PA or something, and it was one of their might have been their very first film job, and me and Jeremy played some kind of practical joke on him, and it backfired so badly that once we told the kid that we were joking, he was relieved and left the business.
Wow.
And I feel so bad, and I've often wanted to talk to Jeremy, like, can you remember what we did? Because I can't at all.
Oh, I was going to ask you what you did.
I'm not a cruel person. Jeremy's not, but it was some kind of joke that it didn't work out.
Well, we know you got that practical joke mindset from the fake money and the.
Yeah.
But these are all pretty harmless things. You weren't doing anything too. I would love to know what that practical. I would love to talk to this guy and find out what exactly happened.
I don't know
there.
what we did.
Maybe that was Stokely. We find out that it was Stokely. He went into like behind the scenes audio stuff or whatever for sports or whatever like this. Okay, quick shout out here as we wind down. So Spun Out, another show that you produce, but I can't say I watched Spun Out, so that's why I'm brushing, unless you got a great story there. Puppets Who Kill is another one I missed. So a lot of your stuff, of course, how could you miss it? This is big stuff. But Puppets Who Kill, I think I missed that one. I got to go back and watch that one.
Puppets Who Kill, it was like the funniest show ever to work on, but somehow it didn't always translate to the final product. Like I probably never laughed so hard on a set in my life, but then somehow when it got edited, when we watched it on TV, it's like, oh, I don't know. It wasn't as funny as it was 4 weeks ago.
Interesting how that works. All right, so on our way out, though, I would like to ask you a little bit about being the first executive director of the Feature Film Project. This was a Norman Jewison initiative, his Canadian Film Center. Tell me about this.
So, I got approached to run this program called the Feature Film Project. The idea was that it was open for first-time directors, writers, and producers who'd, been to the film center. 2 to 3 had to have been to the film center. And I was offered this gig. I had a baby on the way. I needed this elusive thing called a full-time job, which I hadn't had in years.
Right.
I accepted the job. And I thought it would be like awesome because it's like, oh, they say, hey, you have you can solely green light. Like if you say you want to do a project, we're doing it. And I thought, that's crazy. That's amazing.
That's artistic freedom.
It was fantastic. The drag was I had to turn so many people down. So I was naive. I thought, oh, this would be great. I'll get to produce, a bunch of feature films for first timers. It'll be fun. We can do some crazy stuff. What I hadn't thought through was like, well, I've got to turn down. And I probably turned down 400 people or groups of people and projects because, we can't do this one.
Right.
But yeah, it was a great experience.
And I mean, a couple of the films that we should shout out that people might have heard of, I sure saw Rude and Cube.
Yeah. Yeah. So both films were very clever filmmakers. They did a great little trick in that Vincenzo Natali, who did Cube, did a really good little movie called Elevated. Funnily enough, Gary Topp was a music supervisor on it. Oh. And so that he did it as proof that his whole film takes place in an elevator. And his thing was like, hey, I'm going to prove that I can make a compelling drama in one location. Clement Virgo, who did Rude, did a similar thing. He did a short film at the Film Center called Save My Lost N-Word Soul that was very, very psychedelic, much like Rude ended up being. So those guys, when they came with their projects, they were like, hey, this is what we've done. Like, we can actually do this. And we got them going and got them approved, and there you go.
Awesome. on our way out, I thought I've been talking about this Gary Top book, and I've never named the book. Okay, so the book is called He Hijacked My Brain, and the launch party that you'll be at is Sunday, December 1st. That's the day after. That's how they should promote it, the day after TMLX 17 at Palma's Kitchen. But doors 1:30. I don't know if there's any tickets available. There weren't a lot to start with, and they went pretty quick. I do know Rob Pruce grabbed a ticket, so he'll be there. But it's at the concert hall, but it's not just the concert hall. I'm kind of excited about the fact it's the Red Room, and this was the Mason's Inner Sanctum, a chamber for all meetings and ceremonies. I've never been in the Red Room. Have you been in this room?
Nope.
Even though you're related to a Mason?
Nope, never been in there.
Okay, so I'm looking forward to chatting with you again.
It's sold out. 7:00 show that night, though. There's a second show now.
Okay, so He Hijacked. There's a second show now, but this will be the Gary Top. I should have the whole list of people on the panel, but all that matters is that Colin Brunton will be there. And dude, I'm so glad we got to do this like lengthy pre-interview. Should I have recorded this, Colin? I did record it. That's a practical joke right there. Thanks for the gifts. Anything you wanted to share that how come Mike didn't mention all this, Hedwig and the Angry Inch and all this other stuff? Is there anything?
No, it was great. It was a pleasure.
If you had just done the last Pogo, I feel like I would have had you over for 90 minutes. So I can't believe you did more. And if people want to see the last Pogo jumps again, for example, about the Punk's Last Waltz, where do they go? They just
the only place it's available for me is Vimeo. So if you go to Vimeo and search the title, you'll find downloads there. And Circus Books on Danforth has a pile of DVDs if you're into something you can hold in your hand.
Oh, quick shout out to Empire of Dirt and a quick question on the way out. So Empire of Dirt, which you were a line producer on, it was nominated for Best Picture at the 2013 Canadian Screen Awards. Quick question for you, because you got the Genie Award and then you got nominated for the Canadian Screen Award. What did you like better, Genies or Canadian Screen Awards? Did you have a preference? Well, let me hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I don't know. I don't think they're that important. As a matter of fact, I sent my Genie back to the Academy about a couple of years after.
Really?
Yeah, when Highway 61 came out, we got no nominations at all, and I just thought, you know what, this is bullshit. Like I won an award for a short film that I'm positive the jurors didn't really watch.
It's a good title,
but they thought it had a really good title. And then we make this movie that critics liked, Siskel and Ebert liked.
Toronto Mike liked,
and it's like we didn't get one nomination, so I sent it back to them. And apparently it is in a room at the Academy of Canadian Cinema with many other Genies and CSAs that people have sent back. I think Bruce someone told me they found this garbage bag on the street, and it was all these awards to Bruce McDonald. I think he's thrown out all of his awards.
You saved the best for last here, because I normally ask, like, where is your Genie Award today? Like, is it on display? You sent that thing back.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, well, whatever.
That's good. Highway 61 was amazing. Come on, should have won Best Picture. Do you have any memory of who won Best Picture that year?
No clue. No
Probably
idea.
some piece of shit.
That's the thing. That's the thing with the awards. I'll give you $1,000 if you can tell me who won the CSA last year for Best Feature Film. You're not going to get it.
No, I'm thank God you weren't going to kill me. I'd be at Ridley Funeral Home right now.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the end of our 1,579th show. Go to TorontoMike.com to find out. I've been kind of digging Blue Sky lately. Kind of ticked off at this whole Twitter thing. Anyway, you can find me at TorontoMike.com. If I'll go to Blue Sky, I'm Toronto Mike there. Much love to all who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery, Palma Pasta, RecycleMyElectronics.ca, Raymond James Canada, Moneris, and Ridley Funeral Home. Give some money, you cheap sons of guns out there. Go to GoFundMe.com/F. I guess there's an F in there. /Nash_rises again. Nash_rises again. Cough up some money. Let's get this thing financed. Nash_rises again. See you all later this week.